All right, let's take a look at how to write an equation given amplitude, period, and a point. I've copied a few examples directly from IXL so that you can see how it looks directly from there. So the first example, I went ahead and wrote two correct answers that they give down here in the lower right, so you can see that. I'm going to go with the simplest result for your equation, which is what you can always do. You can do them all just like I'm getting ready to show you. We're going to go for that equation right there, sine x plus 2. So what we do is we use what we're given to solve for what we're not given. We need all of these components. We need A, B, C, and D. Let's just go ahead and say that C is going to be 0 for our purposes because that makes it easier. We're saying we're not shifting it to the left or the right with a phase shift at all. So let's plug in our values and see what we've got. Right off the bat, we're given A of amplitude, which is 1. So we know that we have an amplitude of 1. Now it could be plus or minus 1 because we've taken the absolute value of A. So let's just say that we're going to use positive 1. And that's okay. That's completely legal. You can do that. So you can always just use the positive just to make your life easy. Choosing other options are what gives you different equations, and there are multiple equations that will work here. So our period is given as 2b. So let's go ahead and find what b is using the formula for period. So we've got 2 pi, which is our period. We're going to put it over 1 equals, and remember we can find any period using 2 pi over b. So I'm going to use 2 pi over b, so I'm saying period equals 2 pi over b. And now I only have one unknown, which is b, so I can solve for that unknown. So if I cross multiply, I get 2 pi b equals 2 pi. When I solve for b, I just divide both sides by 2 pi, and I then find out that b is equal to 1. So now I have two components that I didn't have before. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use that point that I've been given. I'm going to use that x and y. Notice we have x and y. We don't actually have y. We have f of x, but that's also y. We're going to use the x and y that were given in order to find d because it's the only thing left that we don't know. So we're going to plug those values in, and we're going to solve for d. We're going to plug those values into the general form of the equation with what we've already found. So our y in this problem is given to us as 1. So we're going to write 1 equals, now I'm just filling in this general form of the equation right here. So 1 equals a sine, so a is 1 sine, and we don't need to write that particular one, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. B x. So b is also 1, so we've got 1, and x, which is given to us as negative pi over 2. Okay, and remember we're letting c be 0, and then, which I should not have written that there. Yeah, that's okay. I've got that extra parentheses in there, and then we're going to write plus d because that's what we're going to try to find in this particular case. Now, let's find what we can put here. I want to put something right here instead of all of this. I want to put an actual value so that my only unknown here is d. And I need to go back to my unit circle in order to do that. So let me go grab that unit circle. I'm pretty sure I have that already loaded in, but maybe not. All right, so here's our unit circle. Let's make it small so it's not covering up absolutely everything we have. And let's see what it is I'm talking about that I'm going to use it for. So what I'm going to do, if you remember, and if you don't remember, here's a reminder. On the unit circle, each one of these coordinates is cosine sine. So this unit circle comes in pretty darn handy when you're solving these problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to simplify it, and I'm going to get sine of negative pi over 2. I don't really have a negative pi over 2. I have pi over 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that pi over 2 on my unit circle, which this particular one, for some reason, the 2 is not filled in, but it goes right there actually. So I find that pi over 2, and I figure out what my sine value is in my set of ordered pairs at that value. So when I'm right there at pi over 2, I end up with a value of 1. So instead of writing this, I'm going to write a 1 because look, there's a 1 right here in the sine location, which is the second coordinate, which is your y coordinate. And since we're working with negative, we want to go ahead and make that a negative because of this negative right here. So now we've got a new equation that we can solve because we only have one unknown. We have 1 equals negative 1 plus d. And then we're going to add 1 to both sides, and we get positive 2 equals d. So now we've found everything we could possibly need to write this equation. I'm going to go ahead and just write it over here. I have the amplitude of 1, which is 1 sine, b, which is 1x, and I'm letting c be 0, so we're just not even going to write anything there, and my d, which is plus 2. So you can see that that is one of your choices with IXL. Okay, so let's take a look at one that we can work out in very much or in exactly the same way. So let's go ahead and just read our amplitude for this problem. So we know that A is going to be 1, so A is equal to 1. And again, it could be plus or minus 1, but we're just going to use positive 1 because we like it to be as easy as possible. So our C, we're going to go ahead and say that's going to be 0. Just going to let it be 0. We're not going to have any phase shift here. So then all we need to do is find B and D. So let's find B using our period. So again, our period is 2 pi. So luckily we don't really need to solve for that B because we did it on the last one. Okay. So our B here again is going to be equal to 1. So now I can just solve for D. So let's go ahead and set this up. We've got 1 sine, and then we're going to insert our our x and our y. So our y value here is 1, and our pi value, or our x value, is going to be, let's see, we've got a 1 here, and we're going to have negative 3 pi over 2. And we're letting c be 0, so we don't even need to write that, and we write plus d. Now really we already know that this is going to be a 1 here, but we're going to go ahead and just look at the unit circle and see anyway. So let me add that in again. Let me find that. So there it is, huge. Let's make it small so that we can read. And we are going to go look for 3 pi over 2 because we don't have a negative 3 pi over 2. We have 3 pi over 2. And that is going to be right here. So there is our sine value of negative 1. So since we have a negative here, right here, we're going to say a negative negative, and that's going to make that positive 1, okay? So we're going to have 1 equals 1 plus d. And if I subtract 1 from both sides, I get d equal to 0. So now I have everything I could possibly need to write this equation. I can just fill in. So I'm going to write, let's see, f of x equals 1 sine, which I don't need to write the 1, sine, and then it's 1x, I don't need to write the 1, so I'm going to write x, c is 0, and d is also 0, plus 0, don't need to write that. So there is your equation. And they all work just exactly the same way. So that should help you be able to write your equations from problems that are given an amplitude, a period, and a point. Okay, let's take a look at one more really quick where it doesn't work out, where the amplitude is 1 and everything isn't quite as neat, but it still works out the same. And the period in this one is 3 pi, the point is negative 3 pi over 2, negative 2, and the amplitude is 2. So let's go ahead and list what we have and find what we don't have. In this case, A is going to be 2, and we need to find B. So we'll use our period as usual to find b. If we solve that for b, we are going to get b equal to 2/3. So now we have b. So then all we need to find is c, which we're going to let c be 0 as usual, and then we need to find d. So let's set up our equation in order to find d. In our equation, we're going to fill in our x and our y using our given point. So setting up our equation, we're going to let our y value be -2. Remember, our f of x is y, so -2 equals 2 sine. We're going to have 2/3, which is our b value, and then fill in your x value, which is -3 pi over 2 plus d. Now, go ahead and do that arithmetic right here and see what you get. You're going to get 2 sine of, and we're going to cancel out our 2's, cancel out this 3, and you're going to get 2 sine of -pi plus d. So here is where we need to go look at our unit circle and see what value of sine is going to go right there. So we need to go look at our unit circle and see what we have for a sine value at pi. So if we look at pi, so we're going to go find pi, which is right here, and see what the sine value is at pi. So at pi, our sine value is 0. So instead of writing sine -pi, we're going to write 0. So we're going to write 2 times 0 plus d. So we've got -2 equals 2 times 0, which is 0, plus d. So d is equal to -2. So now we have d. And we have everything we need now to write that function. So let me slide everything up here out of the way. And I can write my function. So my function is going to be f of x equals 2 sine 2/3 x minus 2. You guys can probably tell I moved outside because the cars and the birds are all going by here. And there we go. So I've filled in A, B, and D. I don't need to fill in my C because I used 0.